So greetings from Europe. We start another episode of Let's Talk Europe, and today we have a very special guest all the way from Ukraine, from Kiev, a member of a parliament in Ukraine, a Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Solomiia Bobrovska. Hello, Solomiia.
Labas vakaras, добрий вечір, слава Україні, good evening.
Героям слава. Well, so many languages in one introduction. So basically, what I always want to talk with the people who are boots on the ground is, about the situation, the way you see it, and the situation you see in the media, in the news, and how it correlates with each other. So, in this context of war, I want to talk to you about the foreign powers and the European Union, the NATO, and the US and the Great Britain, and how do you see the support and the contributions in Ukraine? So maybe let's start one by one. So
Okay.
Rammstein probably was the last thing that happened in terms of military support. What were the expectations, and how would you rate this, after it's already done and some additional weapons are promised, but obviously it doesn't meet by far the requirements that were publicly made by President of Ukraine and other political leaders?
First of all, I want to stress on that I think, from my point of view, we made a step on very tough, long-lasting war time, when both sides, even more than both sides, except Ukrainian side and Russian side, but our European and Western colleagues and partners, I think on this step we are. We don't have a right to be tired, but we see how the world is getting more tired from what's going on, from the war, and we don't see dynamic as it was in March or in April or even in May, because the tough battles are on the battlefields, on the front line. For example, now in Severodonetsk, that's the center of Luhansk region, and no news as it happened in March and April. So they bombed the civilian railway, yes, and it shocked the public, and that made us to be more interested in what's going on in Ukraine. Why I'm saying this? Because with time, it's harder and harder to persuade and to communicate what's going on in Ukraine. What does it mean? So the partners, they want to see, the results, or they want to see our victories, but between what they are promising and what we are getting and we have on the battlefields, that's a huge differences, and I would say that's a huge gap. Because when we get for example, not hundreds or thousands of MLRS, multiple launch rocket system, which is not more than 60 kilometers, can hit the target. That's not about making us much stronger as we wished. What I mean, if, for example, the Kerch Bridge, which is uniting Russian Federation and Crimea, yes, it remains still for us a target, because that's bridge is one of the instruments, of the ways for Russians to get new weapon, new tanks, new heavy artillery, and so on and so forth. But we cannot do this because we just don't have instruments to do that. And the quantity of the weapon which we are getting could satisfy, for example, one or two regions on the front line, but not the whole front line, which covers actually almost all Ukraine, if even not to count Belarus side. And I think that the end of June or the beginning of July will be again the time to Belarus to show their face, whether they will start any actions, except they are digging the ground, as you saw probably on the borderline with the Poland. And if they will open this front, I think we wouldn't have a lot of options to stand long.
But most of the analysts say that it's very unlikely, especially the ones from the region, from the Baltic states, from Poland, let's say, because of the nature of brotherhood of the people of Belarus and Ukraine. So it's an unlikely event, and
I understand.
Also, everyone who is listening, for example, to Arestovich, in the evenings, he says that if they cross the border, most of them will switch sides. How do you see those scenarios?
I don't want to comment Arestovich. I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
It will be not professional from my side, but to count for expert analysis, that's one side, but to understand the logic which is used by Russians and by Belarus, that's the other. We couldn't imagine that Russians will use like long scale front line for their invasion, and we didn't expect, after persuading from Belarus side before the 24th of February, that Belarus will be the state which will help to Russia to come from our northern side to Kyiv and to Zhytomyr region, for example. And we know for sure that, for example, couple Belarus land forces, they were on Ukrainian land fighting here, even though it was unofficially. And we know for sure that, for example, Belarus SOF, Special Operation Forces, they were on the Ukrainian side and they were fighting against our army, even though again it was unofficial and they could join just Russian military troops or groups or units or whatever. To my mind, the Western state countries, they have to understand that you cannot count rationally 100% plans of people who have totally different mentality, and Lithuanians know that. That's why, for example, when I'm reading your news, understanding about this Suwalki road, yes, and do not understanding what can happen at the end of June and the beginning of July again, because it happened lots of ways the situation can move. So that's why the option from Belarus, I will continue to count as an option. Even though we understand that the army is not motivated, the people are against, and even on the social media, on Telegram channels, we see how active actually civilians are with helping with information, saying what rockets have been launched from Belarus side, which way they are shooting, which military fields are used for Russian military troops and units and so on. But never say never, and I think that's not an option not to ignore even, but to be not to be careful with Belarus. That's my point. And by the way, at the end of November, I was in Lithuania, and I visited your border with Belarus, and I saw how fast you started to build the border wall. And after on my coming back to Ukraine, I went to my native region, which is bordered with Belarus. And despite only like rivers, woods, that's not enough to have good protection from their army.
All right, yeah, I absolutely agree with you that you should never say never, and dictators, doesn't matter which one, Lukashenko or Putin, they are living in their own bubbles, and you should always carefully
to count on that.
Yeah, and you can't really count on their words, and you have to basically monitor them 24/7. Okay, so in terms of the upcoming NATO Madrid summit, what are the Ukrainian expectations from this gathering of NATO partners? Do you have some
Mhm.
goals that you are trying to lobby for?
Yes. So since 2008, when it was the summit in Bucharest, and we had to get this membership, NATO membership, and we were declined. And after 2014, and especially 2016, when it was now this amendment is in constitution that our political will is to become a member of EU and NATO. That's the constitution. You cannot just change it, not having 300 votes in the parliament. And no one actually will vote, even though it was a point of for discussion from the Russian side, if you remember, and in February and in March when negotiations took place. But I was in Vilnius at the end of May. We have the parliamentary assembly, NATO PA, so-called, where we met with all members of parliaments, NATO member states, and had really hard and tough discussion when Ukraine can see the membership, even not even get a plan for membership, but to get this membership. And unfortunately, a topic with getting this EU candidate status, that was the priority, and it's still the priority till these days, because 23rd, 24th, we're expecting to get this EU candidate status. But about the NATO membership, that's actually not, unfortunately, it's not even a topic for discussion. We heard that the best the best option we can hear, that NATO remains with the politics of the policy of the open door policy for Ukraine. It means they're not closing their doors. We can still be on the way to NATO, but during the war, it's impossible to talk about the future's membership. That's obvious. But the second time open door policy, okay, that's your decision. How the Ukrainian nation will decide, that's how you will join. But the problem is, and I try to explain our colleagues, this open door policy cannot be endless story, because once we will just be killed, and nobody will need that open door, because it's just formally open, informally that's the closed door actually, and we are staying somewhere behind the doors. And or once, if not the option when we'll be killed, but it is this the perception of the war for some Western countries. That's like you can see this online, or it's somewhere like a computer game. It's a bit artificial. It's hard to understand, to explain people what does it mean conventional war during the 21st century in the Europe. By the way, that's what we saw.
Well, we see that when they visit, let's say Macron or Scholz, when they see it firsthand, at least their faces change. So you have to see it. Yeah.
Yes, at least. And I remember when Hungary demanded the evidences of if was it really Bucha happened as a genocide or tragedy or massacre. Yes, they didn't believe that. But Hungary is that's a different story. And going back again to NATO topic, except the open door policy, I would say that maybe once Ukraine will build. And I think that's will be the option for us, unfortunately, instead of NATO, build, or for the nearest future, the military coalition or partnership.
So we hear this from Boris Johnson, this initiative, yes. Poland, Ukraine, Britain, yes. Baltic states. How do you see this yes. coalition, and what will be the purpose? Would you see them as, allies actually in the front line, or, I don't know, like air support, like boots on the ground? What are the expectations from this possible coalition?
First of all, I would say that would be the states with which will help to keep at least security guarantees, And one of the, I think one of the main sequences has to be the reaction if one of the states is attacked by the third country. We like, there is, believe me, when you hear the bomb shelling at 4:30 a.m., you don't have time to get all 30 states, for example, to say yes, that we are going to join this or that military action or crisis, as they used to even continue to say, but react. And yes, I think that the military cooperation, that has to be the priority. Not even economical direction. It's one of the, believe me, one of the important things. But military aid and cooperation and partnership, that would be the core. And it's not even about the soldiers, but I do understand that, for example, Baltic state, that would be crucial thing. And that's why one of the demands from the Baltic state, that's the strengthening eastern flank, NATO flank, because of the quantity of the army, NATO army, which has to be in Lithuania or in Estonia or whatever, or in Latvia. No time will be for you to resist, and I think all these options can be together to cooperate and to help each other with that, starting from the soldiers and missions, military missions, and finishing with the military technical assistance and aid.
Yeah, but from what you said, so if such a coalition would be formed, so basically you are already attacked. So that would mean that, let's say, UK and Poland would have to help straight away. So it would be a game changer in the war.
I think that the point is that this coalition can be discussed only after when the ceasefire can be established in Ukraine, or any agreements, if they are at least available somehow, will be done or signed or whatever. Now we understand all risks. We do not demand any kind of the human help, I would say. Like we don't need and we don't demand soldiers from the partners, and that's for us okay. We have enough people who are
but what I meant is probably the aviation of Great Britain, would be a game changer in that sense. Like if
but we can find different options that we can use the fly jets, but we're using our soldiers. But the point is that when Macron came to Ukraine, he said, okay, we have informal agreement between the NATO member states that we are not supplying for you fly jets and tanks.
Have you heard this agreement from, let's say, Duda, Polish president, or Boris Johnson? Because it's not actually 100% that it's a fact what this French president said.
That's the point. Like he announced it, he said this publicly, and we like, what's going on? It seems to be, we are in the zoo where Europe just looking at us like through the glass. And waiting when it will be the end of for us or for Russians. The Russians have to keep their faces, as Macron said. Like if the price for our victory, that's the fly jets and tanks. So how much cost our freedom for them?
So you mentioned, I wanted to ask you, but since you mentioned, let's talk about it straight away. This saving the face of Putin, narrative that was. Basically announced by Macron, the French president, but informally probably also similar to the position of Scholz and and Draghi and Orban. How do you see this narrative? Like an independent country with was attacked basically. There's a massive civilian casualties, and we are talking about saving face of a dictator who is like, everybody is admitting that he is a dictator, and and the state in Russia is totalitarian. How do you see this this talking point?
first of all, you have to understand, like, except Hungary, no sense, and it's senseless to explain what you say to European states. Hungary never have made a choice for right side, unfortunately, and this time is not that outstanding their position.
But they support your membership status, let's say, as an example.
Okay, we're thankful for that, but you have to understand the candidate status is not the end. How many years we can stay in this status? And I think this battle for this status, that's too much exaggerated, because we are just fighting for the right. That I think that was obvious for us. If Serbia is like 6 years on the way, or Turkey, or whom to mention, like we can have the status for ages, actually, to be honest, and nothing is going on, press on EU to move forward, to make step to membership. The problem is, I think, what we see from Ukrainian side, that Germany, especially France or Italy, they are trying to go back to the business as usual. Just okay, so let's try to find the agreement. Or, for example, Italian plan was, okay, let's go to status quo as was in February, or please, okay, go, like, Ukraine can give the part of the Donetsk Luhansk region, and then to get ceasefire.
So they are pushing you towards Minsk free, like, in general, some useless, like for Ukraine position.
Exactly, and I think that France is still afraid not to go back to this business as usual, and this phrases. So we, like, what usually they can say, we cannot imagine how Russia will fall and what to do with Russia afterwards. That's actually the main issue. Always is discussed between this groups of people who are trying to find at least some way for diplomacy with Russian Federation. Italian members of parliament, they said, okay, we have battle with we are fighting with Putin, but not with Russian nation. And like you have to find any negotiations with them, because you are there is brotherhood with Russians. So what? And we're trying to explain that when 80% due to their polls saying that they are supporting Putin, when their husbands calling to their wives, and wives saying, okay, go and rape Ukrainian women, or go and kill Ukrainian children, what does it mean?
What kind of brotherhood are we talking about?
Yes, and what kind of only Putin is the enemy? No, guys, like, where you are, the only language they understand that's the economy. When we are trying to explain, for example, about the grain, export of the grain, and blocking the Black Sea ports, and saying that, okay, you will have the new wave of refugees from Africa because of the hunger. They're trying to think, and only from that perspective, trying to move how to solve this solution, not to have the problems afterwards.
So they are looking at this very pragmatically. If it doesn't concern the Western European, they don't care.
Yes, very pragmatically. You're absolutely right. And France, that's one of the biggest disappointment. If in Germany now we see, by the way, again going to historical roots, there's discussions between Eastern members of Bundestag from Eastern Germany and Western Germany, how they trying to Western Germany trying to persuade Eastern their colleagues from Eastern Germany that we have to support Ukraine, we have to move, we have to be faster, we have to be more concrete and more radical with the position, German's position. Eastern, they said, okay, how we have to persuade our voters that you need not anti-tanks weapon, but tanks, for example. Because in March we have the one position, and in May second position. But it's they are breaking after Second World War. They are breaking with their trauma, and we're trying to explain there is no time for their trauma, because we already made a step on the third war. Maybe it could be World War, unfortunately, but like не дай Бог. But we are 21st century. It's not about the Second World War. It's about what Russians are going to make the same with the Eastern Europe, or with us at least, and to make this, to put us under their umbrella, Russian umbrella.
Yeah, so probably I can ask this question that the European Union is not a monolith, and it's obvious that there is the core of the European Union, and then there is a bureaucracy of the Union, which moves at terrible speeds. How do you see, like, if imagine Ukraine becomes a member? Probably the main thing the Germans and the French are afraid that Ukraine with Poland and the rest of the Central Eastern Europe could form a new power center in the ES, and that's what they are afraid of. In your view, is it a thing that the Western leaders are afraid of?
You mean if the Eastern Europe will take leadership?
Yes, with the addition of Ukraine, it becomes like a power player, in the whole European continent, in terms of the people, the population, the economy.
To be honest, even now, in terms of politics and realpolitik, I would say that Eastern Europe is almost taking the first place and playing the biggest role even than Macron or Scholz. Okay, that the big states with the resources and so on, but what shows Poland together with the Baltic states, even plus Slovakia, even plus UK, even though it's not no more member of EU. I think they took leadership and they took responsibility for all this 115 days of war in Ukraine, and that shows that they feel the ground, they feel realpolitik again, and they feel the new configuration of the new world, because all the time, if you remember, we repeated, Russia is trying to establish new world, to play by their rules, especially in this area. And I think not France and Germany no more is playing the first role, but the Poland with Baltic states, with like Eastern Europe flank, Czech Republic, like all states which passed, by the way, the Soviet occupation, they are much more stronger in their understanding, leading, and responsibility.
Well, it's quite obvious, because we have a sense what is Russia, what was Soviet Union. We have plenty of people in the West world, who have some romantic feelings about Stalin, and the ones in Eastern Europe. In Eastern Europe, there is no romantic feelings, because they know how the ancestors were put in the trains, without windows and doors, and were kept there, all the way to the Siberia, and basically died on the way, and gave birth on the way, and stuff like that. So that's a different story. The last thing I really want to ask you, because it's obvious that the part of Europe that I am from, we strongly support, and most of the countries, were 70-80% of support, but we still have skeptics all around the world, and like in the US, there is a very interesting skeptic part or side, usually from the Republican side, which says, look, Ukraine has banned some political parties from the parliament. It's undemocratic. I mean, could you explain what kind of political parties were banned and what were the reasons, so there will be no delusions?
Okay. The easiest. So maybe 2 points I want to share into our people have to hear. So first of all, we banned the political parties which during the previous 30 years have had links and payments from Russian Federation. That was the methods of the KGB, then Federal Security Service of Russian Federation, to work with here through parliament, city councils, NGOs, and so on and so forth. That was the strongest, one of the strongest instruments, which we even see still now in South and East. People who were elected from this political pro-Russian political parties now are the core of people who started to collaborate with the Russian occupied regime. And when I see this last names of these members of city councils, I see like 80% of this representatives of this pro-Russian political parties, and that was our mistake, not to forbid them, not to forbid them earlier, and to play this democracy still after 2014. That was the biggest mistake, and I urge you and warn you in Eastern Europe especially, please don't play with them. Remember that people can wait for 30-40 years for the new occupants will come, and they will work with them. I think that was our hugest mistake, and now we have the same situation in the parliament, when some of our members of parliament, they are now working with the Russian regime on the occupied territories. I think that's the shame for us, and it goes under our dignity now, who especially who resist. And the second thing, there is no democracy during the wartime. We have to understand that the state, the economy, politics, no opposition. It has to publicly, I would say, that like it has to be one front to work for army, to support army, and to work hard to get the victory. To continue this discussions and conversation, freedom of speech, of media, and so on. That's not during the wartime. It has to exist.
Absolutely. So a few quick questions before we finish. One more piece that skeptics usually, kind of use is the oligarch behind Vladimir Zelensky. Is that still some kind of issue in Ukraine, or it's already inside, like everything is clear and just some marginal powers outside are talking about this topic?
I would rather say now oligarchs are partly volunteers, because, for example, if you're taking Renat Akhmetov, who is the biggest oligarch in Ukraine, and who was in opposition to Zelensky, he lost a lot in Mariupol and on occupied territories. Physically, it was just all damage, destroyed, and so on. And for these three months, I would say that most of them become military volunteers to support army and to support state. Maybe in a month or less, we again will see this political issues and so on. But believe me, during all this time, that it wasn't a topic for discussion in the parliament or in the society or whatever.
So this dude Kolomoisky is not some kind of strange figure anymore.
No, like all oligarchs remains to be strange figures. But during this almost 3.5 months of war, I would say that wasn't a topic and issue, because everybody knows who is doing what, helping army or IDPs or refugees or evacuate people or city councils or whatever. I think I hope that the main point for oligarchs was how to keep Ukraine, but not to betray.
Okay, and the last question I do have a short one. It's sort of actual like interesting, probably to the Polish, to some Lithuanians. You just passed a Istanbul Convention like a few days ago, and people who are skeptical, regarding the leftist orientation, they say that probably European Union pressured you to do this in terms of promised status or something like that. How do Ukrainian parliament see this convention, in the broader picture?
So first of all, I want to say that more than 10 years, Ukraine made the way to pass through the parliament, the Istanbul Convention. It was a long way for us, and long discussion with the religion organization and churches. And even I'm being a great supporter and of the Ukrainian church. I voted for the Istanbul Convention, and I think even if it was one of the demands, I think it's more rational. It's more about rational things, but not about emotional and what we reading in this paper, but not existing in reality. No one will change. No one will change constitution or Ukrainian legislation to create new gender, or to have new people somewhere on the streets, or to bring up children in some different ways, as it from now. Nothing new, nothing more. It's only about the struggle to keep women and men actually safe from the home, from the
abuse
all
and
abuse. Yeah.
yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
actually, I don't.
mhm.
Being even like being even church supporter, that's for me was more important to support women and families to struggle with abuse. And I, again, no legislation will be transformed to create new gender Polish, but we're traditional and conservative, I would say.
All right, so I hope you cleared, at least some myths for our Western partners, from the other side of Atlantic in US, and hopefully we can expand on some topics when we have some more additional time. So it was a great pleasure.
My pleasure as well.
Okay, so have a great evening, and everyone who are listening, I hope to see you for the next episode. So see you soon.